lovely music to us. Thank you for that. I'm going to kick you out, okay? So please don't do that. Equally, the chat, everyone can see the chat, please. And I think you need to be using your own names. So there's some very interesting made-up names in the people section. Okay. Okay, so we'll look forward to... there's a few more to come through. So I think we're welcoming, it's George from the University of... Lost my paperwork. Which university are you from, George?
Brunel University.
Brunel, excellent, excellent.
Can you see my screen?
I'm going to turn my camera off. We can't see it yet, George, no.
Okay, just see if I can... can't work it. Do you know how to share the screen? I thought I shared the screen, but it's not letting me present it.
It should just be the share screen option at the bottom.
Okay, I'll try again.
Present now, it's called.
Yeah.
Okay, we can see.
Can you see a presentation now?
I can't, George. Can anybody else? Not yet, no.
What about now?
Yes, it's presenting now. It's
okay.
Thinking about it. Hang on.
You should see UCAS personal statements and the Brunel University London branding.
Not yet, I'm afraid.
Okay.
There are lots of people saying yes. It might be me.
Students, if you can say yes. Okay. So you should be able to see it now. I will. Would you be able to just check if students could just reply with yes if you can see it, and then if just let me know. It says here that I am sharing my screen.
Yeah, you click on if you're struggling, you have to click on George's icon in the people and it will come up. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, cool. So let me know throughout if this does stop sharing, and I will look into it. But for now, I'll assume that you can all see my presentation. Just click on my name, George Green, and you'll be able to see that. Thank you very much for tuning in this afternoon. Today, what I'll cover is UCAS and personal statements. If you have your microphone on, could you make sure that you turn it off, just so I can hear a few kind of microphones going on. So my role at the university is to work with young people in primary, secondary and post-16 education institutions to give them the information about university and help them prepare for university as well through events on campus and interventions in school. Today, I will go through UCAS and personal statements. So what I'll do is I'll go through UCAS, starting your UCAS application, choosing your subject and university, preparing your personal statement, and how to write it, and then I'll give you some just snippets of good and not so good examples. I hope that today this presentation, my experience of working at different universities, and before here I've worked at Cambridge, Birmingham and the University of East Anglia as well, so I've worked with different admissions tutors at different universities to really understand what makes a good personal statement and what universities are looking for. So UCAS stands for Universities and Colleges Admissions System. On this website, you'll be able to find around 50,000 courses. When you register with UCAS and you send off an application, there is a charge in terms of sending off applications. So it's £20 for a single choice or £25 for multiple choices. So we do advise taking the multiple choice option, and then it will allow you to apply to different universities. On UCAS as well, it's kind of developed and changed over recent years. There's now UCAS Hub, and on that, when you register to UCAS, you'll be able to not just explore and research courses, but chat to real university students currently studying courses at universities across the UK. The system also allows you put information in there as well, and it allows it to kind of tailor kind of courses to your interests as well. So there's a suggestion kind of tool, and also something about personal statements on there as well. So support and advice on personal statements. And so UCAS has partnered with Unibuddy, so you can connect with students to find out what it's like to study at their university and on their courses, and you can filter on that as well. On UCAS, you'll be able to find apprenticeships as well. So if you're still undecided and wanting to still explore your options very carefully, there is now apprenticeships on UCAS that you can look into. So starting your UCAS application, what you'll need is to come up with a password upon registering. Make sure you keep that with you. It's very handy, but also it can be a little bit difficult to get your password back because they'll ask you loads of questions. A username will be generated as well, so you'll just need to record that. Please register with a sensible and professional email address. Very important. I remember working at the University of East Anglia, and the admissions tutors were telling us that they were getting email addresses that were kind of Little Miss Giggles, for example, at yahoo.co.uk or something like that. So it does need to be a professional email address, because you are submitting a professional application to education institutions. Depending on how your school manages it, you will have references attached to your application. What you do is you send in your application well before the deadline, the official UCAS deadline. Your school will have their own deadline as well, but they will need to attach teacher references. So it's really worth considering talking to members of staff at your school about references in advance. Your school will also have a buzzword, so it's important to get that from your teachers as well, and that's what you'll need to kind of sign in with as well, register with, using that buzzword, because then the application is attached to the school or college that you're at. When you're applying, you will need information on the additional support you might need at university as part of a university package, or part of the package of an application. How you intend to fund university. So a lot of students go through Student Finance England. And then you have your education and work history and key dates of that education and work history. So for example, a lot of you would have obtained your GCSEs if you're in year 12 at the moment. So you'll need to have that information and the date you achieved that award. And then you'll need to have information on qualifications that are pending as well. So any retake GCSE qualifications, as well as your post-16 qualifications, such as A-level or BTEC qualifications. So there are different sections to UCAS. You'll have your personal details, choices, education, employment. You'll put your statement there as well. Reference will be who the university needs to contact for references. So you don't copy and paste your teacher's reference onto your application. It's just contact details for that part. But what will happen is there'll be a tick which will signal when the section is complete. So you will know when the section is completed properly, and that will come up on the UCAS application. If it's not been completed properly, or it's incomplete or in progress, 3 green dots will appear, and a blank box means that you have not started it yet. So when you choose your courses, you will need to fill in certain information. You can see on the right here, there's asking for the institution code, the course code, start dates, those sorts of things. There's an asterisk next to those kind of key information. That means it is required to complete that section. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to go onto the C list and then find the university that you're applying for example, and make sure that you click that. You just can't type it in. And then point of entry, what that means is that you'll most likely put 1 because you're going to be first year students. The only reason you put something different like 2 is if you're transferring and you're finishing your first year at university. So factors to consider when choosing a course in a university. I can go into this in quite a lot of detail, but the main thing is considering does the university offer the course that I'm looking for? What am I interested in? What are my strengths? And narrowing down the universities that offer the course that you like. Looking at the entry requirements. A main thing here is looking at the modules included in the program. So one history degree won't be the same at 2 different universities. So you might have a university that's delivering a history course around European history or American history. Another university might be centering it around something completely different, maybe war studies, for example. So make sure that you look into your course in a lot of detail and just don't click 5 random courses. It's important to kind of unpack what is included. And then there's other factors that you'll want to consider as well. Does the university offer placement years or study abroad opportunities? Those sorts of things. This is what the education page will look like. So when you go to, once you've made your choices, you might want to start filling in the rest of your application. So education, for example, you'll find the school or college that you attend, and then you'll put that in to your UCAS application, but you must make sure that you click the find button and your school or college will appear. You'll put the start date, so when you started school and when you finished school. So you might have gone to a different sixth form or college, for example, to the school, your school previously. And then you're likely to put a full-time mode of attendance. Most students who are currently in sixth form or college will be working full-time. And then you start putting your achieved and pending results in. So when you put your application together and you've done your statement, you've done your education and work history and put your personal details in, you will send off your UCAS application. The process is here. Usually the UCAS portal opens in September, but I believe they've opened early this time round. If you're applying for Oxford and Cambridge, the deadline for applications is October, and that's the same for medicine courses, veterinary medicine and dentistry courses at any university as well. So Oxford and Cambridge and those types of courses that I just mentioned, the deadline is October. So your school or college will have a different deadline for those applicants. For everyone else, the deadline is usually January, but like I said, your sixth form will have their own deadline, and the reason for that is because they need to attach teacher references. So that's really important. You will submit it, but that doesn't mean that it's gone off yet. Teacher references have to be put on there as well. Then in February, you'll start noticing that you'll get some offers back. A bit earlier in a lot of cases, but by February you should have your 5 offers back, and that'll tell you whether you've got unconditional, conditional, or decline. If you have used all your 5 choices and you are holding no offers, you can add an additional choice at that point through UCAS Extra. Then decision making happens in June. So you pick your firm and insurance choice. So the firm is the university that you really want to go to the most, and then your insurance is the university that you would consider going to after picking your first one. And then in August, you get your results. And then there's no kind of further actions. What happens is you'll log onto UCAS onto results day, and you should have the kind of response from the university, whether they've turned your offer into like an unconditional guaranteed place or not. Adjustment is also available for students who exceed their offer, and clearing is for students who don't meet the criteria. So if you exceed your offer and do better than expected, you might want to shop around and look at other universities that offer the course that you're interested in, and you might think, actually, I'm going to apply to a different university, maybe with entry requirements that's meeting my needs. But at the end of the day, a lot of students have done a lot of research into universities, hopefully that by that point, and they've kind of got their mindset on a university that they've put there as their firm choice. So personal statement section. This is kind of the main point of the presentation today. The personal statement is an important part of your UCAS application. It's your chance to describe your ambitions, skills and experience to university and college admission staff. So UCAS personal statement is mandatory. It's 47 lines, 4,000 characters, not words, as a maximum. And your first draft is unlikely to look like your final piece. And when I started my personal statement about 10 years ago now, I found it at first very difficult to write about myself in a lot of detail, but there are ways of overcoming that as opposed to just sitting in front of a computer and trying to start typing. There are things that you can do, which I'm happy to share during this presentation. What I would say is when you've got your ideas down and you know what you're going to discuss, or some of the key points that you want to discuss in your personal statement, start writing on Microsoft Word and copy and paste it over to a UCAS personal statements box. The reason for that is there is a timer on the UCAS statements box on the application form. So after a certain period of time, it will time out and you'd lose your work. So do it on Microsoft Word. So where to begin when you write your personal statement? So what I would advise is doing a mind map, something like that, and really thinking about why you want to study this course for 3+ years. So unpacking your interests, why you want to do this for a long, study this in more detail. It could be that you're really interested in something, it applies to the real world, you're interested in the theory behind certain concepts in your course. It could be a case that it will prepare you for a certain career. So there's loads of potential reasons why you might want to study that course, but put that down on a mind map or note that down on paper first. Getting your thoughts out on paper is really quite a good way of overcoming that, that potential freeze when you start writing. Are there any particular topics or themes in that subject that you find particularly interested in? That's something that you want to note down as well, because in a personal statement, it's not about demonstrating your knowledge about everything about that subject. It's about why you're interested in it, why you want to study this further, and kind of why you're suitable for that course. So there might be particular topics or themes that you're interested in that you might want to discuss in more detail and why that interests you. But it's not about listing what you know or discussing everything you know. That's not the point of a personal statement. It is about you. You might want to think about the wider reading as well, and that's good preparation. So wider reading, and it could be watching YouTube clips, anything that's planning or researching your course in a lot more detail helps you write your personal statement, because you just have more of an understanding of the subject, and that will come across in your writing. You want to think about your career in the future potentially. This isn't an essential because a lot of students don't know what they want to do in the future, but they know in the immediate that they want to go and study a certain subject. So if you are lucky enough and fortunate enough to know what you want to do in the future, discuss that in your personal statement. That's absolutely fine. But it is mainly about your interests of the subject, and thinking about the skills that you've developed in your currently at school or sixth form or outside your studies as well, because that's something that you want to include in a personal statement. As I mentioned before, researching your subject is very important. So reading around what maybe current news or something that's happened historically, but is quite an iconic, momentous thing. So that's really important. You might want to look at BBC Learning, certain podcasts, you might want to subscribe to certain magazines. So if you're interested in politics or economics, you might be interested in The Economist. Science subjects, The New Scientist. Listening to podcasts is really good, because the more you listen to them, the more that you're becoming, and you're listening to experts as well, or people who are very knowledgeable in a certain area, you're becoming familiar with the jargon and language that they use, and that might be then something that you could use confidently in a personal statement. So planning your personal statement, as I mentioned before, mind mapping helped me. That was a really important tool for me to kind of get everything out on paper and have a lot of rich content. So you want to think about, what can I include? Why am I applying to this course? What do I know beyond the curriculum as well? So politics, for example, you might be interested in what the current state of affairs at the moment in the UK or the US or in Europe and the European Union. So there might be something that you're interested in that you might want to discuss as well, and why that interests you. So always linking it back to your interests. That's very important. You might want to discuss career ambitions and skills that you developed as well. So that's another thing, extracurricular activities or curricular activities that relate directly to a course that you're applying to. That's always good, enriched content that you can include in a personal statement. So here's just an example. So why study economics? So you're interested in how the world works. You might be interested in the trade war between China and the US, the economics of Brexit, the 2008 recession. So there's different things that you might be interested in that you might want to read about and do a bit more exploration in that. You might have a good knowledge and understanding of the intersection of economics and politics. So those kind of ideas, writing down on a mind map what you know already and what you understand in quite good detail, and allowing you to say, well, why am I interested in that, is quite an important thing to get down, I would say, because then that's something that you could potentially select to put in your personal statement. And then career ambitions or kind of those sorts of things. Another example, so for a more vocational subject, physiotherapy, for example. So you're interested in this course because you might be interested in working in a health or care profession. You're good with people, you want to contribute to their health, for example. You might be interested in injury and how that comes about, and rehabilitation, those sorts of things. Experience as well. So you might have demonstrable experience that you can put down on your mind map of working with people and the skills that you develop from that. You might have subject knowledge that you're quite interested in. So you might be interested in the human body and that relationship between that, injury and sports, rehabilitation and recovery. So that's something that you could discuss, and why that interests you and why that fascinates you. And also, if you're using that terminology, you're demonstrating that you have an understanding of that subject in greater detail. One thing I would say, though, with specialist terminology, if you're not comfortable with using it, that's fine. You could learn about it in much more detail over the coming years, but do not use terminology or jargon that you're not comfortable with or unfamiliar with, because you may use it out of context. So then demonstrating skills. So you might think to yourself, and I have this thought as well, how do you demonstrate that you've got certain skills? And I found that very difficult. But thinking about experiences that you've had, and then unpacking those experiences. So delivering presentations in school or sixth form. So presentation skills, planning and organizational skills you might have. You might have done some writing for the school's newsletter. That's written communication skills. Dealing with the public. So I had a job in a supermarket when I was in sixth form, and that allowed me to demonstrate spoken communication, adaptability, and patience. So I can demonstrate that I've got those skills by referring to an experience. Now, this in particular is really good practice in general for writing a personal statement and discussing skills, because you will have to do that when you're writing a cover letter for a job. You will have to do that if you were applying for an apprenticeship. You need to demonstrate that you have transferable skills that they're looking for. So that's something else as well. I put manual dexterity down there as well, because some of you might decide to apply for a course in things like dentistry or medicine, and you will need to understand that that's quite a relevant skill. So manual dexterity is being careful with your hands. Obviously, a dentist needs that. That's very important. And you might demonstrate that in various ways. Now, I'm not saying that you pick up a guitar or you start making model planes, but that's an example. But having awareness of that skill is important to discuss in a personal statement for courses like medicine and dentistry. And then thinking about transferable skills, so those that are directly related to your course and those that are not directly related to your course. So supercurricular activity, I would say, is directly related, and that is something that I would definitely put in a personal statement. Certain experience and skills, especially for vocational subjects like nursing, for example, you will need to demonstrate that you've got experience, that you have understanding of that profession, and that there are certain skills that are required for that profession as well. And that's why it's important to discuss that in more detail. So before I move on, there's just a few things. In terms of the structure, I would recommend that 75% of your personal statement is on your academic interests. So what your understanding of the subject, but why that mainly relates to your interests and why you want to pursue that further. That's very important. And then 25% would be related to skills based. So it could be directly related or not related to your course, but it's that picking skills and experience that actually would help you in your studies and university life and student life. So those sorts of things as well. If you do apply to universities such as Cambridge and Oxford, however, working previously at Cambridge University, I know that they would recommend about 90% of your personal statement to be about your academic interests and why you're interested in that course. So, and then a smaller part on skills-based, things that are linked to your studies or things that would help you in your studies as well. So that's still important, but it doesn't hold as great importance in an application to Cambridge or Oxford. So that's the difference. If you're applying to Cambridge and Oxford, and then you're applying to other universities as well, go with the mainly structure of 90% academic interests. So do write with positivity when you're writing your personal statement. It can be quite easy to talk about something positive and then discuss something a bit negative. So anything that's negative needs to be really moved out, and you need to talk about yourself as positively. And there'll be so much to talk about in terms of your academic interests, your skills, all that sort of thing, but it needs to be positive throughout. Link back to your chosen course where appropriate. Keep it neutral. So what I mean by that is don't say that you're applying to the University of Bath in your personal statement if you're also applying to Brunel, Reading, Loughborough and Bristol. So that won't look good on a personal statement at other universities. So keep it neutral. Use specialist vocabulary if you feel confident in using it. So as I mentioned before, the more reading that you do around your subject, the more podcasts you listen to, the more likely it is that you'll be able to use specialist vocabulary in your personal statement with confidence. Sell yourself, so talk about yourself positively, and you'll probably make several drafts and make sure you proofread. Okay, so that's very important. Sometimes Microsoft Word will not pick up certain words, or you might have a word that has been misspelt, but it's still a word in itself. So make sure that you read through it very carefully. Don't lie, plagiarize. You can't use fancy formatting, so you can't use bold or italics. Don't repeat information from elsewhere on the form. Don't make lists. That's very important. Don't just repeat what you've read. It has to be something that you've identified of that's something of interest to me, and that's why you want to explore a subject further. Don't list in terms of what you've already done at school or sixth form, because as admissions tutors, the universities are aware of what is covered in the curriculum. Don't use humour or jokes, and don't list your previous or current qualifications. You will do that in your application, so you don't need to put that in your personal statement. So that's what I've seen in the past, where students have gone, I'm currently studying A-level maths, English and biology. But you don't need to even, that doesn't need to come up in a personal statement. You might want to discuss a module that you've studied in your A-level biology, for example, that you're really interested in, and why you're interested in it, and that's why you want to take it further. That's absolutely fine. But listing is not appropriate. So in terms of the structure of your personal statement, it is a standard structure that you should write any piece of writing, really, in terms of, especially for a personal statement or cover letter. An introduction, making it clear what subject you're applying for. So don't make admissions tutors read between the lines. Discuss why you're interested in that subject from the very beginning. Aim to capture the reader's interest by discussing the subject area using common jargon that you are familiar with, which gives an overview of your interests. And then in the main body of text, you want to include examples of why you're interested in a subject area. Discuss it in so you might want to discuss it, a particular module, for example, but not listing. Discover areas where of the subject beyond the curriculum, so linking it back to your interests, not just picking out loads of examples, but ones that kind of inspire you the most to do a subject in more detail. Discuss any real life examples. So this is where things like experience, for example, comes from. So if you're applying to law, you might have, you might be fortunate enough to get experience in a law court, for example, and observing. Now that's not essential, but if you did something like that, that's something that you can discuss in an application. Discuss experience and what you've learned from that and the skills that you've developed. So that's very important as well. So it's not good to say, I have got 3 weeks experience in a care home. You need to, and leave it at that. You need to kind of say, from my experience working in a care home, I'm more aware of patient needs and the need for good communication skills. I was able to demonstrate that when and then have your example. You may want to discuss career ambitions as well, but you might not know what your career ambitions are yet, so this isn't essential either. Then you have a conclusion. Summarize what you've discussed and do not introduce new interests and ideas. That's very important. It's about rounding up what you've discussed already in the main body of text, linking it back potentially to your introduction as well, and it might only be a few lines or a few sentences. Okay, I'm just going to continue. So what I'll do now is go through some good and bad examples, or good or not so good, I don't want to say bad, of what I've seen in personal statements over the years that I've worked in different universities. So this is, you've probably had time to read this already and see that there's a problem here. Firstly, I would say check your spelling. Great is obviously spelled wrong, but also being head of my form and captaining a debating club, I have great communication skills. These are two experiences that you could unpack more and you could discuss in more detail as well. Another example is I've had a passion for football since my early years and did try to make professional, but I missed out on this opportunity. Therefore, I'm going down a different path because of my love for sports more generally. So this is not a good example because what it tells an admissions tutor is that you tried one career path, that didn't work out, so now you're going to university as a second option, and this is quite negative speaking. So it needs to be positive. And we've had similar ones like this before, a student studying for a business course, and they've said, I tried climbing the corporate ladder and I didn't get that far, so I'm now going to university to study business. That is not a good example and a good reason to study business. Another example here, so I'll give you a little bit of time to read that. So okay. That's really inappropriate and really unprofessional. So I think what I'll do is.
Hi George, I'm sorry about that. I've just removed them from the section.
Thank you. I'll just continue with the rest of the presentation. So as you'll see from this, there are certain experiences that they're drawn upon. They're discussing that they've worked in a care home and that they found it particularly informative, and it's raised awareness of the varying types of support people require. It discusses a placement and how they've developed further understanding of a certain medical condition and how that impacts people's lives. And then they've discussed the skills that they've developed from that experience as well. Another example is not so great example. Once again, it's very ambiguous, but also demonstrating not much knowledge in an area of the subject they're applying to. Another example we've had in the past, what is the meaning of life? That's something I often ask myself, but would like to explore this further in my degree. So people sometimes, this student applied for philosophy, but it's really important not to let the admissions tutors read between the lines. You have to be very clear as to what you're applying to and why, but reading between the lines is not a good example. And this is a good example that I'll read through very quickly before we end. The study of language demands observation, exploration, and imagination, with a central role in exploring what it means to be human. Philosophical concepts such as where meaning comes from is a particularly interesting area of study, and this is one of the many reasons why I wanted to pursue a degree in English language and linguistics. I want to develop my understanding of the structure, meaning, and nature of linguistic communication. So this is a really good introduction. This is using words, jargon that is really appropriate for the degree course in terms of observation, exploration. They've talked about philosophical concepts tied into that degree as well, and they're using that kind of jargon very appropriately, and then they've made it very clear what subject within the first couple of sentences they're applying to. Here's another example. I'll let you read through that, but this once again touches on an experience. This is for someone who's applying for medicine, and they're talking about a placement shadowing clinic staff, so using particular language associated with that course and that profession and what they're aware of as well. So what I'll do now is I'll kind of end the presentation with a quick kind of quiz. You can do this from home by just saying true or false. If we were in school and it was all normal, I'd ask you to just raise your hands. So we'll have some statements and they'll be true or false. So you have 4,000 characters and 47 lines to write about yourself in a UCAS personal statement. That is true. You can use bold and italics to emphasize what you are communicating. False, it must be through your use of language, and that's very important. So think about your sentences and how you structure your sentences. So you might want to look at sentence structure and not start everything like, I am interested in this, I am, you know, it needs to be a bit diverse to keep the reader interested. It's okay to copy someone else's work. False, that would be plagiarism, and that would be alerted to the universities through the UCAS application process. You can use quotes. So I didn't mention this at the beginning. You can use quotes as long as they're relevant, sensibly used, and limited to a small amount of words. Sometimes people put a quote at the top of their personal statement that is very much related to the course, okay, or a subject area, and it's quite a defining quote, and it helps structure the rest of the personal statement. So that is true. You can do that, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's very common. At least 75% of your statement should be focused on your academic interests. That's true. Unless you're applying to Cambridge and Oxford, then I expect you to kind of increase that by to 85 to 90%. 25% of your UCAS should be on extracurricular activity. So that's something that is experience that you can be related to your course, or it could be more about how your skills would be helpful in your studies and that sort of stuff. Supercurricular activity that is linked to your course is definitely relevant to your personal statement. So that is true. I would really prioritize that if you've got experience and that is related to a vocational profession as well. So that is something that definitely needs to be prioritized and talked about in the main body of text. Using jokes and humour is always good in a personal statement. That is false. You should mention and list your existing qualifications. False, you shouldn't be doing that. I've seen that time and time and again. Do not list, I'm currently studying A-level, this and this. It's not relevant. It will be in the main application. You should reflect on negative experiences. That's false. A personal statement is about you, your academic interests and curiosity, along with the skills that you've developed. So that is definitely true. And as I mentioned before, this is a really good experience. Even if you decide in there not to go to university, to get used to this type of writing, because you will need to express yourself in the job market when you're applying for jobs, or if you decide to go for an apprenticeship. So thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for those who really listened carefully and sensibly as well. I hope that you found that interesting and you got lots from that as well. And good luck with your UCAS application.
Thank you, George. Thank you so much, everyone. That was really useful. Lots of information there. Again, a bit of an overload today. We'll have some more time to review some of this stuff. Thank you so much. I think we can end that session there for today. There's a bit of a break